You don't know what you've just carried, the small voice whispered, and I froze in the crush of the World Cup crowd, the roar of the stadium hammering against my ears like a tidal wave. My hand instinctively closed around the black envelope, my knuckles whitening as I glanced down at the boy who had pressed it into my palm, his wide green eyes flicking nervously over my shoulder. The air smelled of rain and sweat, mixed with the faint metallic tang of stadium concessions, and I could feel the tension vibrating through the crowd like static electricity. I swallowed hard and leaned closer to him, whispering, "It's okay, you're safe now," though my voice barely carried over the cacophony. The envelope felt heavier than it should, and a subtle thrum of dread pressed against my chest as I tore it open with shaking fingers. Inside was a folded photograph of a man standing in a dark suit, sharp features etched in the harsh stadium light, ice-blue eyes staring directly at whoever held it, and a small note that read, "Protect him. Everything depends on it." My heart stumbled in my chest. I glanced around, suddenly aware of shadows that seemed to move with purpose among the crowd, blending into the sea of people, yet radiating a quiet menace I couldn't ignore. A gust of wind from the open stadium doors swept through, lifting strands of my damp hair into my eyes as I clutched the envelope tighter, my other hand holding the boy's small one, grounding him to me and grounding me to reality. I felt the shift before I saw him, a presence colder and more commanding than anything I had known, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Nathan Romano stepped from the shadows, his dark tailored coat brushing the damp floor, eyes scanning us with a predator's precision, noting every detail, as though he had already calculated every move we might make. My stomach knotted, adrenaline spiking, yet something about the way he observed, like a storm contained, made me aware of a strange pull, a recognition that this man held the weight of consequences I could neither escape nor ignore. The boy trembled slightly, and I tightened my grip around his hand, whispering reassurances I wasn't sure I believed. Nathan moved closer, the crowd parting around him without a sound, the clatter of cleats and the shouts of fans fading into a distorted hum, as though the stadium itself had bowed to his presence. He stopped a mere 5 feet away, and the intensity of his gaze pinned me in place, the light catching in his ice-blue eyes, revealing nothing but the weight of unspoken secrets. I held my breath, heart hammering against my ribs, as he spoke, voice low but calm. "You have something that belongs to me." And the words slid over the chaos, resonating with a finality that made the boy squeeze my hand tighter. Around us, the world blurred, the neon lights reflecting off wet pavement, the roar of thousands, the scent of wet grass and stadium metal, but nothing existed beyond the envelope, the boy, and the man who had appeared from nowhere, his presence an immovable force. Time seemed to stretch and compress at once as I considered my next move, realizing that whatever I chose in the next seconds would define everything that followed. My pulse raced, my mind teetering between flight and the inexplicable sense that I was already entwined in something far larger than myself, a story unfolding at the edge of chaos, with Nathan Romano at its center and a black envelope holding the key to mysteries I had no choice but to confront. The rain had slowed to a soft drizzle, pattering against the stadium roof as Emily Carter held Liam close, feeling the warmth of his small body press against her side, grounding her in the midst of chaos. The black envelope still clutched in her hand felt heavier now, as though it carried the weight of the secrets within, and she could not shake the image of Nathan Romano watching from a distance, his presence a tether she could neither see nor escape. Her mind raced, sifting through the contents of the envelope, piecing together the fragmented information and realizing that Liam was somehow connected to a network of events far beyond her understanding. Every step she took through the crowd was measured, careful, as if the very movement might betray the boy and the envelope to eyes that could not be trusted. She could hear the faint echo of cheers from the stadium, the pounding of feet, and the distant sound of vuvuzelas, but her focus narrowed entirely to the 2 figures in front of her and the danger implied in the folded photograph. Nathan Romano moved with a precision that seemed choreographed, weaving through the crowd, eyes locked on Emily, yet without drawing attention from the spectators, a shadow among the lights, silent and calculated. Emily's breath caught as he approached, his expression unreadable, every inch of his stance radiating authority, but not hostility, and she felt a strange mixture of relief and apprehension, sensing that he was aware of Liam and the envelope in a way she could not yet comprehend. Liam tugged at her coat sleeve, and she bent down to meet his gaze, whispering reassurances that felt hollow even as they slipped from her lips, and she realized that despite the crowded stadium, they were isolated in a bubble of urgency that surrounded only them. Nathan stopped just a few feet away, his gaze flicking between Emily and Liam, and in that moment, the world seemed to narrow, the noise and the lights fading to a peripheral blur, leaving only the three of them in a fragile equilibrium. Emily felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders, her hands gripping the envelope tighter, and she realized that trust had to be established quickly, that understanding had to form before the crowd, before the chaos, before the unknown forces that might be closing in. Nathan extended a hand, not threatening, but assertive, as if silently instructing her to follow, and Emily felt the tension in her shoulders ease fractionally, yet remained alert, aware that the smallest misstep could unravel everything. Liam clutched the envelope to his chest, glancing at Nathan, then back at Emily, and she saw a flicker of understanding, a recognition that Nathan's role was protective, his power a shield rather than a weapon, though she could not yet grasp the full extent of the stakes. They moved together through a narrow corridor behind the seating, away from the spotlight and the cheering crowds, the muffled noise creating a rhythm that marked their careful, deliberate steps. Emily sensed that every choice in the next minutes would define their immediate survival and the unfolding of a secret that had been entrusted to a child, and her heartbeat quickened as the corridor opened to a small, dimly lit room where Nathan gestured for them to stop, his eyes briefly scanning the entrance for any signs of interference. Liam slid the envelope into Emily's hands once more, his small fingers trembling, and she nodded, understanding that it was now not just her responsibility, but a shared trust between them, fragile but necessary. Nathan's voice, low and controlled, broke the silence. "Do not open it here." And Emily felt the finality in the command, the implication of danger and protection intertwined, and as she nodded, she understood that their journey had only just begun, that the choices she made in the next moments could alter everything for Liam, for the envelope, and for the man who had appeared from the shadows to safeguard them. And in that realization, a quiet resolve settled over her, steadying her racing thoughts and marking the beginning of a story that demanded courage, awareness, and the willingness to confront the unknown together. Emily Carter followed Nathan Romano and Liam through the narrow corridor, her senses alert to every shadow and sound, the echoes of the stadium fading behind them as they moved deeper into a quieter part of the complex. The dim lighting cast long, distorted shadows across the walls, the fluorescent bulbs flickering intermittently and creating a staccato rhythm that made her pulse race. She held the envelope against her chest, feeling the slight crinkle of paper beneath her fingers, each fold and crease suddenly more significant than it had moments ago. Liam clung to her hand, small fingers gripping tightly, and she felt a surge of protectiveness, a resolve to keep him safe no matter the cost. Nathan moved with a calm precision ahead of them, his steps silent yet confident, scanning the hallway and occasionally glancing back at her and the boy, a subtle gesture that conveyed reassurance without words. She noted the sharp lines of his suit, the way his coat swayed with each measured stride, and the intensity in his ice-blue eyes, a color that seemed to cut through the dim light and pierce directly into her thoughts. Emily could feel the weight of the responsibility settling on her shoulders, each step forward a reminder that the secrets within the envelope carried consequences she could not yet fully understand. The corridor opened into a small service area, fluorescent light buzzing overhead, and Nathan motioned for them to pause, his gaze sweeping the space as though assessing its safety and potential risks. Emily knelt beside Liam briefly, checking that he was steady, whispering softly, "It will be all right. We are almost there." And she noted the faint tremble in his body and the rapid rise and fall of his chest, a physical manifestation of the fear that had brought them here. Nathan knelt as well, maintaining eye contact with her and Liam, his presence solid and grounding, a counterbalance to the tension that had been building. The silence in the room was almost tactile, the faint hum of electrical equipment in the background emphasizing the focus required in that moment. Emily took a deep breath, feeling the cool, recycled air fill her lungs, grounding her thoughts, and she realized that despite the uncertainty, there was a strange clarity in the shared understanding between them. Nathan extended a hand, not in command but in an invitation, a gesture that acknowledged both her autonomy and the need for guidance, and Emily accepted, feeling the subtle pressure of his palm as a signal of both protection and expectation. Liam shifted slightly, leaning into her side, and she adjusted her grip on the envelope, feeling the connection between past, present, and the unknown future solidify into a tangible moment of trust. Nathan spoke, his voice low and precise. "This is the point where discretion becomes your ally." And Emily nodded, understanding that every movement, every choice from this moment forward, carried weight. She could sense the boy's curiosity mingled with apprehension, and she offered a reassuring smile, grounding him as they proceeded further into a controlled space where secrets could be examined, plans could be formulated, and the envelope's significance could finally be understood. The three of them moved as a unit, cautious yet deliberate, the dynamic between protector, guide, and guardian forming an unspoken rhythm that carried them forward into the next chapter of what was quickly becoming a story of trust, responsibility, and the delicate balance between danger and the courage required to face it together. The small room they stepped into was quiet, the soft hum of fluorescent lights above adding a rhythm to their cautious movements. Emily Carter adjusted her grip on the black envelope, feeling the weight of its contents like a pulse through her fingers, each fold pressing against her palm as though reminding her of the secrets it held. Liam stayed close, his small hand slipping into hers, grounding her in the middle of uncertainty, his green eyes wide with both fear and trust. Nathan Romano stood slightly ahead, his posture rigid but controlled, scanning the room with an intensity that made the air seem denser, almost tactile, pressing gently against Emily's chest. She could feel the calm in his presence, a quiet authority that contrasted with the adrenaline still coursing through her veins, making each step deliberate and measured. The walls around them seemed to close in, the narrow corridor they had entered giving way to a small office space with a single window overlooking the rain-soaked streets outside, the city lights reflecting on wet pavement and casting a muted glow across their faces. Emily took a steadying breath, listening to the distant hum of the crowd that had begun to fade beyond the building, the muffled cheers and shouts replaced by a soft rhythm of rain against glass and distant traffic. Nathan finally spoke, his voice low, calm, and precise. "We need to understand what this means before anyone else does." And Emily nodded, feeling a mixture of apprehension and resolve, knowing that the envelope held more than just paper, but a key to events far larger than herself. Liam shifted slightly, pressing the envelope closer to Emily's side as though he could feel her nervous heartbeat through her coat, and she whispered reassurance, though her own voice betrayed a flicker of uncertainty. Nathan stepped closer, his shadow stretching along the floor, and gestured toward a table where Emily could place the envelope carefully, maintaining a space between them that felt both protective and instructive. She followed, the subtle weight of responsibility grounding her movements, aware that this moment demanded attention, awareness, and the willingness to engage with the unknown. The air was thick with anticipation as Nathan pulled a chair and sat, motioning for Emily and Liam to join him, his gaze never leaving the envelope, and she could feel the gravity of the situation pressing down, the implications of what they now possessed settling like a physical weight across the room. Emily set the envelope down slowly, her fingers brushing the surface with care, noting every crease, every mark, knowing that the smallest detail could carry meaning. Nathan's ice-blue eyes softened for a fraction of a second, a subtle acknowledgement of the trust she was placing in him, and he spoke again. "This is not just about protection. It is about understanding and knowing when to act." Emily felt the clarity of his words resonate, aligning with the cautious determination she had felt since Liam had first handed her the envelope. The boy sat close to her, quiet now, sensing the shift in energy, and she placed a hand on his shoulder, grounding them both. Nathan leaned back slightly, eyes narrowing in contemplation, as the room seemed to contract around them, the tension a tangible presence, weaving between trust, responsibility, and the fragile anticipation of the secrets waiting to be revealed. Emily exhaled, steadying herself against the weight of what had just begun, and in that quiet, charged moment, she realized that their next steps would define the unfolding of events, and that the connection between her, Liam, and Nathan had formed an unspoken bond, fragile but undeniable, anchoring them in a story of protection, revelation, and cautious courage. Emily Carter sat on the edge of the small office chair, Liam pressed close to her side, the black envelope resting between them like a fragile promise, and she could feel the subtle tremor of his small hands against hers. The faint hum of the fluorescent light above seemed to synchronize with the rapid beat of her own pulse, each thrum echoing in her ears as she tried to piece together what the contents of the envelope truly meant. Nathan Romano stood across from them, his ice-blue eyes scanning every crease, every fold, every indication that might reveal the urgency and importance of the document. He moved deliberately, yet with a calm authority that seemed to fill the room, his presence anchoring Emily and Liam even as uncertainty swirled around them. Outside, the distant echoes of the stadium had faded completely, leaving only the quiet rhythm of their breathing and the occasional drip of water from the roof, mixing with the tension that seemed to thicken the very air. Emily drew a slow breath, feeling the responsibility weigh down on her shoulders, and she met Nathan's gaze, searching for reassurance in the intensity of his expression. Nathan's subtle nod conveyed both acknowledgement and direction, and she understood that this moment required patience, awareness, and a careful, measured response. Liam shifted slightly, pressing closer, and she adjusted her hand to cover his, offering silent comfort. Nathan gestured toward a small table and encouraged Emily to place the envelope carefully on its surface, observing her actions with a watchful eye that was firm but not oppressive, an unspoken instruction on the importance of precision and care. Emily's fingers brushed the envelope lightly, feeling the texture and the slight rigidity of the folded paper, each detail anchoring her focus and reminding her that the secrets contained within carried significance far beyond what she could yet comprehend. Nathan moved closer, crouching slightly to meet their level, and his voice, calm and steady, filled the small space. Every detail matters. Observe, understand, and act only when certain. Emily nodded, absorbing the weight of his words, the gravity of responsibility settling over her like a tangible presence. Liam's gaze flicked between them, sensing the intensity without fully understanding, and she offered a gentle smile, grounding him in the reassurance that they were guided by someone capable, vigilant, and protective. The three of them remained in this delicate balance, the room quiet except for the soft hum of the fluorescent lights and the occasional shift of papers on the table, a moment suspended in time where observation, trust, and careful consideration became the framework for what would come next. Emily exhaled, letting the tension in her shoulders ease slightly, and she realized that the choices she made in these next moments would define the understanding of the secrets in the envelope, the safety of the boy, and the unfolding of a story that had begun with a single act of trust. Nathan's steady presence, the boy's small hand in hers, and the fragile envelope all converged into a moment of silent comprehension, a recognition that they were now connected by circumstance, responsibility, and a cautious trust that would guide them forward. Emily adjusted her posture, readying herself for the careful navigation of the unknown, aware that clarity, patience, and a steady hand would be required to move from this suspended moment into the next chapter, where understanding would meet action and the delicate balance between protection and revelation would determine the path they must walk together. Emily Carter shifted slightly in her seat, Liam nestled close against her side, his small hand occasionally brushing hers as though seeking reassurance in the warmth and steadiness she provided. The black envelope rested between them, its edges crisp and weighty, and she felt the subtle significance of each fold, each crease, as if the secrets contained within had a life of their own. Nathan Romano stood across from them, his gaze unwavering, ice-blue eyes assessing every subtle movement, every breath, every fleeting expression, the calm authority in his stance providing a framework of control within the otherwise suspended moment. Emily's mind raced, sorting through the possibilities, considering the implications of the photograph and the note, feeling the tension of responsibility press firmly against her shoulders. She could sense Liam's quiet anticipation, his small body taut with curiosity and the faint traces of anxiety, and she squeezed his hand gently, grounding both of them in the present. Nathan moved closer, his steps silent yet deliberate, the faintest sound of his polished shoes brushing the floor the only indication of his approach, and he gestured toward the envelope once more, a subtle prompt for her to engage with its contents carefully, deliberately. Emily leaned forward, taking the envelope into her hands again, fingers tracing the edges and feeling the subtle texture of the paper, each moment stretching longer as the weight of understanding settled in. Nathan's voice broke the silence, low, precise, and calm, instructing her to observe, consider, and only act when certainty aligned with the need to protect and preserve the fragile balance surrounding them. Outside the window, the city lights reflected on the rain-slick streets, casting elongated patterns across the room, each flicker of movement from passing cars and pedestrians creating a rhythm that mirrored the beat of Emily's racing heart. She adjusted her posture, sensing the latent anticipation in the air, the quiet hum of the fluorescent lights above, the faint scent of ozone from the rainstorm mixing with the cool air inside, and she realized that every subtle choice, every measured movement, carried significance beyond immediate comprehension. Liam's eyes followed her, wide and bright, searching for guidance, and she whispered soft reassurances, feeling the quiet steadiness in her voice help anchor them both. Nathan observed this interaction, the corner of his lips lifting ever so slightly, a recognition of the trust she was extending and the careful balance she maintained, and Emily understood that their dynamic, this triad of responsibility and protection, was delicate yet unspokenly resilient. The envelope remained between them, a tangible symbol of secrets, trust, and potential consequence, and she traced its surface again, feeling the crisp paper, the weight of hidden knowledge, and the responsibility to navigate the unknown. Nathan moved subtly, adjusting a chair, positioning himself so that he maintained oversight without intrusion, a presence both commanding and protective. Emily exhaled slowly, the tension in her shoulders easing fractionally as the quiet understanding between them solidified, and she realized that from this moment forward, every step, every glance, every decision would carry the weight of the trust bestowed upon her, the protection of Liam, and the careful unfolding of the story that the envelope had begun. In the stillness of the room, with the distant city sounds muted, the soft drip of water from the rain against the window, and the hum of electrical lights above, Emily felt the convergence of observation, responsibility, and the cautious courage required to move forward, knowing that the choices they made now would shape the unfolding of events, the safeguarding of secrets, and the delicate thread of trust linking them together. Emily Carter felt the quiet intensity in the room shift subtly as Nathan Romano leaned back slightly, his eyes never leaving the black envelope, and the sense of anticipation thickened the air around them. Liam, small and still pressed close to her side, watched Nathan with wide green eyes, sensing the gravity of the situation without fully understanding it, and Emily adjusted her hold on the envelope, tracing the folds gently, as if the paper itself contained a rhythm that guided her thoughts. The faint hum of the fluorescent lights above created a subtle cadence, mingling with the distant patter of rain against the window and the muted sounds of the city beyond, forming a backdrop to the weight of decisions hanging over them. Nathan's voice, low and deliberate, filled the space. Trust is built in moments like this. Observe, absorb, and let understanding guide your next step. Emily nodded slowly, feeling a surge of clarity as she looked from Liam to Nathan and back to the envelope, realizing that patience and attention to detail would be crucial in the unfolding of the events that had begun with a single act of courage. She shifted slightly to give Liam more comfort, whispering soft encouragement, and noted the subtle relaxation in his posture, a small sign that her presence offered reassurance. Nathan moved with a measured grace toward the table, adjusting the envelope with careful fingers, ensuring it remained undisturbed while conveying through his actions a silent command to treat its contents with utmost care. Emily observed each movement, her own breathing steadying, and felt the thread of understanding weaving between them, an unspoken communication that guided them all toward a shared goal. Outside, the city lights reflected on the wet streets, flickering through the window, casting elongated patterns across the room, their shifting shapes emphasizing the passage of time and the delicate nature of the balance they maintained. Emily's thoughts raced with possibilities, considering the importance of each fold in the envelope, the photograph and note it contained, and the implications for Liam, for Nathan, and for the story that had begun to unfold. She sensed the protective energy emanating from Nathan, subtle yet undeniable, and realized that it was both a guide and a shield, a framework within which she could act with intention and care. Liam shifted slightly, drawing closer, and she instinctively wrapped her arm around him, grounding them both in the immediate reality while the abstract weight of secrets and responsibility hovered between them. Nathan's eyes softened briefly, acknowledging the trust she extended without a word, and Emily felt a quiet affirmation that their actions in this moment would resonate far beyond the small office space, shaping the unfolding narrative in ways that demanded focus, patience, and a careful, steady hand. The envelope remained central, a tangible symbol of mystery, responsibility, and connection, and Emily traced its surface one more time, feeling the crispness of the paper beneath her fingers and the subtle significance of its contents. Nathan straightened, maintaining a watchful presence, ensuring that the balance between guidance, protection, and autonomy remained intact, and Emily felt the alignment of purpose and attention solidify, anchoring her resolve as they prepared for the next steps in the delicate interplay of trust, caution, and careful navigation of the unknown. In the quiet, charged space, with the rain soft against the window and the city lights shimmering in the background, Emily understood that the next actions they took would define the clarity of understanding, the safety of Liam, and the delicate unfolding of the story that the black envelope had set into motion, and she felt a quiet determination settle over her as she prepared to move forward under Nathan's watchful and protective guidance. Emily Carter held the black envelope tighter as the dim light of the room flickered, casting shadows across the walls that seemed to echo the weight of the secrets inside. Liam pressed closer to her side, small and vulnerable, but trusting in her presence, and she felt a surge of protective resolve wash over her, steadying her racing thoughts. Nathan Romano remained near, his posture unwavering, ice-blue eyes scanning the envelope and the surrounding room with a focused intensity that demanded attention and careful consideration. The air was thick with anticipation, the soft hum of fluorescent lighting and the distant sound of rain against the window amplifying the sense of suspended time, making every movement deliberate and meaningful. Emily shifted slightly to give Liam comfort, whispering softly that they were safe for the moment, and she felt the boy relax marginally, his grip on her hand loosening just enough to indicate that her presence reassured him. Nathan's voice, calm and precise, broke the silence, instructing them to focus on the contents without distraction, emphasizing observation, patience, and the understanding that every detail mattered in the larger picture. Emily opened the envelope slowly, careful not to disturb its contents more than necessary, revealing the photograph and cryptic note that had started this journey, and she felt the pulse of importance and urgency resonate through her hands as she traced each fold and crease. Nathan stepped slightly closer, ensuring the space remained controlled and protective, and Emily sensed the quiet authority in his presence, a subtle reassurance that combined vigilance with guidance. Liam's gaze shifted between her and Nathan, wide green eyes reflecting curiosity and an emerging understanding, and Emily gave him a reassuring smile, grounding them both in the shared moment. Outside, the city lights shimmered on wet streets, reflections of neon signs creating patterns that danced across the floor and walls, reinforcing the surreal nature of the pause they shared. Emily absorbed the calm, steady presence Nathan provided, feeling the delicate balance between his guidance and her responsibility for Liam solidify into a mutual understanding. Each subtle movement, each careful observation, seemed to carry significance, and she realized that the choices they made now would shape not only the immediate outcome, but the unfolding path of events that had begun with a single act of trust. Nathan's posture remained alert yet relaxed, a silent framework of protection and oversight, and Emily recognized the necessity of this careful coordination as she internalized the implications of what they now held. Liam leaned against her slightly, his breathing steadying, and Emily adjusted her hold on the envelope, feeling the weight of responsibility and the potential consequences of action or inaction. The quiet of the room allowed for clarity, a rare pause in the whirlwind that had started at the stadium, and Emily's mind settled into careful analysis, considering the next steps, aware that every action required thoughtfulness, measured attention, and adherence to the unspoken guidance Nathan provided. The envelope, the boy, and Nathan's steady presence converged into a fragile moment of trust and vigilance, and Emily understood that the careful navigation of this situation was not just about immediate safety, but about understanding, preparing, and maintaining the delicate thread that linked them together. In the stillness, with the soft patter of rain and the muted hum of fluorescent lights, she exhaled slowly, feeling a quiet determination settle over her, anchoring her focus as she prepared to act with insight, patience, and the unwavering resolve needed to follow through on the responsibility entrusted to her. Emily Carter felt a quiet shift in the air as Nathan Romano leaned back slightly, his ice-blue eyes softening for just a fraction, yet maintaining the intensity that had guided them through the storm of uncertainty. Liam sat close to her, small hand occasionally brushing against hers, and she could feel the trust and dependence in that simple gesture, a tether to the fragile equilibrium they had created. The black envelope remained on the table between them, its presence a constant reminder of the weight of the secrets it held and the responsibility now resting on Emily's shoulders. The soft hum of the fluorescent lights overhead, combined with the distant patter of rain against the window, created a rhythm that underscored the tension, each beat marking the careful deliberation that had brought them to this point. Emily reached for the envelope, fingers tracing the folds and edges, absorbing the gravity of the task ahead, aware that every movement, every decision, could alter the trajectory of what had already begun to unfold. Nathan's voice, calm and measured, filled the room, emphasizing the importance of patience, understanding, and observation, and Emily felt the alignment of purpose crystallize within her, a blend of trust, responsibility, and awareness. Liam leaned against her side, drawing comfort from her presence, and Emily responded with a subtle squeeze of his hand, grounding both of them in the moment while the broader significance of the envelope lingered in the periphery of their minds. Nathan moved closer, his steps deliberate and silent, ensuring the space remained controlled and protective without intruding on the careful interaction between Emily and Liam, a silent reassurance that guided their focus and reinforced the fragile trust that had formed. The city lights shimmered on the wet streets below, reflections of neon signs casting shifting patterns across the walls, creating a surreal backdrop to the concentrated stillness within the room. Emily exhaled slowly, letting the tension ease slightly, aware that the careful observation and measured responses in this moment were as vital as any immediate action could be. She opened the envelope once more, examining the photograph and note inside, each detail now more pronounced, the implications of the contents threading a quiet urgency through her thoughts. Nathan observed, his posture steady, a subtle guidance in every movement, reinforcing the balance between autonomy and protection, ensuring that Emily felt empowered yet mindful of the responsibility she carried. Liam's gaze shifted between the two of them, wide and attentive, sensing the gravity without fully understanding, and Emily offered a reassuring smile, anchoring them both in the shared presence and purpose. The envelope, the boy, and Nathan's steady presence formed a triad of trust and cautious preparation, each element reinforcing the other, shaping a delicate equilibrium that would determine the clarity and safety of the next steps. Emily felt a growing sense of resolve, a quiet determination to honor the responsibility entrusted to her, balancing careful observation, patience, and action and understanding that the unfolding story depended as much on their composure and insight as on the secrets within the envelope. In the muted light of the room, with the soft rain outside and the steady hum of electricity above, she recognized that their journey, fragile yet potent, had reached a turning point where trust, vigilance, and courage converged, anchoring them in a moment that would define how the envelope, the boy, and the man who had appeared to guide them would navigate the path ahead.